I finished marking your Chapter B1 quizzes and I want to give you some feedback. Now, there is already feedback that you should have on those quizzes because I included some for each question, and some of it I typed in specifically to you, but there were some overall things that I noticed, and I want to try to address some of that just to make sure that it goes more smoothly as we try to do more of these quizzes, usually just for these sort of small pockets as we're moving along through the individual chapters. So first thing that I want to point out is that overall things seem to go pretty well, but there were some hitches that I noticed for the way that people were entering stuff. And very specifically, one question that relates to is the one where I was asking about a person crossing the street, how long it takes to cross. Now, I really applaud you for a whole bunch of you trying to show all of your work. You wrote out formulas and substitution, and then you wrote in the answer and everything like that. And that's great, because typically, if I was asking you to do like a paper and pencil one, including like a big unit exam where I'll ask you to scan stuff, that's totally what I want you to do. But I know that in a Google form, doing stuff like that can be difficult. Also, I had set up the Google form as much as possible to auto mark what you were doing, so that I just had to go in and kind of review some stuff and mark things where you had to give wordy answers, stuff like that. But otherwise, it just marked it for me. Now, specifically with that one question then, because some of you show different stuff for how you either manipulated the formula first or you hadn't manipulated the formula yet, everybody was showing something different. At the very, 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 very beginning of the quiz, I said, follow all the rules for SIGDIGs. Great. That way it applies to even some of the other answers you got in multiple choice and things like that. But I also said for any questions where you have to show a calculated answer, only show your answer. Again, I applaud you for trying to show all of your work, because that is better. And on tests like a unit exam where I'm going to ask you to show all of that, yes, you need to. These little quick quizzes, though, I just wanted to see that you could get through the process. So when the answer was 4.0 seconds, that's all you should have shown. That's it. Okay, that's all I was asking for in those specific questions. Now, the reason some of you still lost marks, even though you kind of tried to do this, is because maybe you didn't show the right number of SIGDIGs, so you just wrote the answer as 4. Technically, we should also have the units, so things like that. Little things to watch out for like that. But you didn't have to show the work leading up to that for this quiz, because I specifically on this quiz said you didn't have to worry about it. Now, in general, I would really recommend that a lot of you do some extra practice with the formulas. That's primarily then V equals D over T and A equals VF minus VI over T. To a lesser extent, W equals FD. But the reason that I say that is that I saw a lot of you get answers that just couldn't possibly be right. And what I think was happening is sometimes you might have been manipulating formulas wrong or something like that. But I think also from the way I was seeing some of the answers pop out, you were, for example, putting a displacement in as a velocity or a time in as displacement. We can't do that. These numbers have to go in very specific spots according to the formula. Otherwise, they just don't work. So when you see a number that's measured in meters per second, that's a velocity. When you see a measurement in meters, that's a displacement. When you see a time in seconds, that's time. Okay? So just gotta watch out for those sorts of things. It'll really, really take away from your ability to be successful in anything that we do in physics. The other question, though, that I want to mention that was a bit specific was the one about me pushing on a wall and me saying, so, did I do any work? A lot of you kind of danced around that answer without specifically actually getting to the actual answer. The fundamental thing that you have to remember is the definition for work in physics is that a force is applied to an object which causes its displacement in the same direction as the force. So, I was pushing on the wall. Yeah, I was applying a force. I really, really was. I'm pushing. But it did not cause a displacement. The wall didn't move anywhere because of my pushing on it. That's why I did not do any work, because there was no displacement. So that was the fundamental thing that was going on there. In addition then to these things that I'm telling you right now, if there's any other questions that any of you have that pop up because you've looked at your quiz and you go, how did that happen? Then come on to Google Teams, or not Google Teams, Microsoft Teams, ask me a question, and I'll be happy to try to help you out with that as much as I can. Thanks.